There's a lot of things that make Montana great, from the mountains and lakes to some of the finest towns in the West. But what really makes this place special is you. Our communities are full of people who are working hard to build good lives and remarkable things. At Opportunity Bank, our passion is helping folks do just that. Together, we can make a good thing even better. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Stop by and see us or visit us online. Member FDIC.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Riding with Ryder, and now it's the biggest game of the year. It's always a big game, and I sometimes actually get annoyed when they say it's the biggest game of the year, but this one, Rivalry, for sure makes it huge, but also it's for the outright Big Sky Conference Championship for the first time ever. That's crazy. I didn't realize that. There's been so many times when this game has been played where one side or the other can share with one or knock one out, but in terms of the winner gets the trophy and that's it, I was surprised by that. What do you think?
Yeah, same. It's one of those stats that comes across and you're like, no, that can't be. I mean, that can't be right.
Right.
This has to have happened even, long before maybe you and I were born or something, right? Some type of conference title or I don't know. But the fact that it heightens the whole experience as if this game could get any bigger every year. But yeah, top 5 matchup, conference title on the line, outright title being that it's as good as it gets, Colter.
Well, I mean, the thing is that both these teams are making the playoffs. We can say that with certainty. I think both these teams are probably getting buys. I think they would surprise me if one of them didn't. I think they both will probably not be playing Thanksgiving weekend. But I mean, you played in a couple of games like this where, like 2010, for example, you guys are going for the title. You're in Missoula, but then also if you beat them, Montana doesn't get the title and they're knocked out of the playoffs. So there's all sorts of different ramifications. But I mean, just take me back to that week because that was the first title in a while that Montana State was going for, and to win in Missoula was, I mean, at that exact moment, the Grizz had been in what, 7 of the last 14 national championship games or whatever. I mean, they'd won
Yep.
12 straight conference titles, and that to me is still one of the most unforgettable Cat-Grizz games. So just take me through that week leading up to it. What's it like preparing when you know there's so much on the line?
Oh man, it's hard to describe. You know already how big the week is, but Colter, the crazy thing about that week is, I'm fairly certain we actually had a bye. So we played senior day and then we had a bye going into the Cat-Grizz game. And so as if the hype for a full week wasn't enough, we had 2 weeks of it, right? So preparation, that whole thing. So I'm pretty sure that's how it worked. But regardless, it's tough to focus, right? It's tough to focus on the task at hand. I think the good teams are able to find a way to be like, all right, I know that we have to get to point C here, got to get to game day, but there's so much to be done between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of practice and a final cleanup on a Friday. But I'd be a liar if I told you that it's not hard to block out the noise and in the media and the interviews and what it means to the state and just to focus on the task at hand. So kudos to the players that are able to walk through this. It means so much to the state, and it's unlike anything else. It's the biggest sporting event in this state every single year. And I just counted a blessing, and I'm just grateful that I got the opportunity to play in 4 of them, be a part of 5 of them, because it's a special deal. And we didn't come out on the winning side except for one, and so I'm grateful for that. We were in a time when those Grizzlies were really dominant and had an exceptional talent on their side of the fence, and so I'm grateful that we got to beat them that one time in Missoula, and hopefully that's been kind of the string that I think it's been a domino that's kind of led to that, along with the streak breaking. But it's been a domino that is kind of, in my opinion, played a factor in some of these other ones. And it hasn't gone perfect, but the Cats have won a whole lot more than they've lost since 2010. And so I'm proud to say that we, hopefully helped with some of that momentum in 2010.
7-4 since then. So certainly Montana State's had the upper hand the last decade plus. It's fascinating to me too, where I mean, you had a great career for the Cats. You're all big sky guy, captain of a championship team. And you can say that about guys on both sides of this rivalry forever and ever. But what is like the thing when people think of Mike Ryder, they think of? They think of your pick in the Cat-Grizz game, right? Like when people think of Logan Jones, he had a great career. What do they think of though? They think of him going off and rushing for like 165 yards against the Grizz, right? I mean, what do people think when they think of Brock Coyle? They think of that game he had in Bozeman against the Cats in his hometown. You could go down the list for hundreds of guys. So from a player's perspective, how do you sort of embrace that? Because I mean, for better or worse, what people are going to remember about players, especially the guys from Montana, is the way they perform in this game.
Yeah, I think you have to just it's not another game. It's never another game, but you have to prepare like it is, and it comes down to doing your job. And I think it comes down to the fact of when the play comes my way, I'm not trying to do something extra. Of course, you're going to have extra juices and things like that. But at the end of the day, like I didn't think about having, the interception against the Grizz. But what my job was, I wanted to focus on the task at hand. I need to be the best that I can be, play in and play out. And then when the play comes my way, I'm going to expect to make the play with maybe a little extra oomph because it is Cat-Grizz. And I think, you focus on that as a player. And I think you have those guys that they play outside their minds, like you said, whether it's Cats or Grizz, especially with this week. But I think you can't do too much because you've seen probably, you wouldn't know it, but probably people that have tried the opposite and tried to play and do too much within a game, and it's gotten themselves in trouble. And so I think you have to stay focused on the task at hand, doing your job, play in and play out, just rinse and repeat. And when the play comes your way, you make every single play that comes your way.
Well, it's like Troy Anderson said in the Miracle of Missoula documentary. He said, when we were down 22-7, I just had to reemphasize to the guys that there isn't a 15-point play. We can't just erase this deficit in one play. We got to just keep playing. There's still a whole nother half of football to play. So, I mean, that's kind of the other part, right? Is like you're saying, you're going to be sky high emotions wise, but you have to figure out a way to settle in, keep the intensity up, but not let it freeze you, right? I mean, Coach Ione used to always tell a story about guys during, like, I think it was the 2003 game, just being frozen on the field because they were so hyped they didn't even know what to do. So, I mean, that must be a big challenge, though.
It is, and I just remember being there in that same spot, especially like your first Cat-Grizz, when all I was doing was, playing some special teams, which is very important. But you feel the magnitude. You just understand how important it is, and so it's hard not to freeze. But you have to remember that, your training needs to take over, and all the hard work that you put in, and the fact is it's another football game. So it's gonna, just like the week you played before, as far as like executing my responsibility and the one-on-one matchups that are gonna occur. There's nothing that you can't. There aren't 15-point plays. There aren't 15-point plays that are going to happen. You just have to focus on the task at hand. And I'd be a liar if I told you that it's not hard to try and separate the two things. Naturally, as the play progresses and you get into middle of the first quarter, things settle. But the juices first, those first couple of series back and forth, and people are feeling each other out. It's an interesting dance, and it's challenging for both sides. There's no doubt about it.
So last question on the pass, and then we'll talk about the upcoming matchups. Since you've been out from the playing days, but between your time as a coach, analyst, and now just observing it, through a close lens, what are some of your most memorable moments from this game? I mean, what sticks out in your mind?
Oh, gosh, my first one, earliest one was being there as a redshirt in Missoula. I remember really feeling that for the first time. It was cold. Both teams were, pretty talented. The Grizz were right in the thick of their dominance. But we had a really good team. We went in there. I think we lost. I think it was 13-6 or 13-7. Had an opportunity actually to go win it late in the game. It didn't. But I remember, that's the day that they wore the throwback unis, which everybody in Grizz Nation remembers. And it really was kind of like that first experience where wow, this is a big deal. I knew it was a big deal, but to feel it was really big. I remember the first one I got to really play in was in Bozeman, and so you naturally remember that. And Lex Hilliard and that crew came pretty good whooping on us. Uh, you know, yeah, I remember there's one year with Andrew Sell that was pretty special for us. We were high school teammates, so getting to play against him my junior year in Bozeman, that was a pretty special memory. But naturally, you remember more of the ones that you played in, and the one that you won specifically. So
Sure.
in 2010, the first play of the game, I think about on defense, Chase Reynolds taking a pin and pull play to the house on our defense, and it was like place erupted, and he had to find a way to settle down, and we did, and end up finding a way to win. And you remember the celebration, on the field. I remember the coin toss and how cold it was. I remember the bus ride home, those types of things. And then as a coach, yeah, just I remember just trying to specifically calm guys down, just to be like, you have to do your job. And that's why I think I feel that so deeply right now, even as I'm not a coach. I feel it because I know how challenging that is. And I marvel at those coaches that find ways to be like, look, you have to do your job first and foremost, and do it with an exceptional amount of like expertise and execution. But execution is going to trump everything else. And so I marvel at those coaches. I know it's a hard job this week. You don't have to, try and get anybody ramped up, but all in all, I'd be a liar if I told you I had more good memories than bad ones. I mean, I was part of 4 losses, and a lot of losses as a coach. So I love and appreciate the wins for Bobcat Country, and it's been 7 of the last 11, and it's been fun to watch as a fan as well. The last 2 wins in Bozeman, in particular, in the fashion that they beat them, has been pretty enjoyable.
At Blackfoot Communications, our mission is to connect people, businesses, and communities, bringing a world-class fiber network to homes, communities, and businesses of all sizes ensures Montanans have access to fast, reliable, and secure internet and phone services. Are you ready for fiber internet? To find out if fiber is coming to your area, visit goblackfoot.com/readyforfiber. Connect to more with Blackfoot Communications.
That's one of the craziest parts about this is, first of all, for a long time, the game was almost completely unpredictable, and it was almost always a close game. But the last 3 times, the home team has whooped the other team's ass. I mean, there's been beat down. Both times in Bozeman, the Cats rolled the Grizz, and then the last time the Cats were in Missoula, the Grizz had their way. How much do you think the previous matchups, just these last couple, play into this year's one?
Oh man, they have to. I think
they have to, especially with the way the Grizz sort of folded in the second half and just took it on the chin, and they got basically trampled. Bobby Hauck said yesterday he's not going to talk about it. He said it's unproductive to talk about last year's game. I agree, actually, it is. But he also is telling these guys, "Hey, we got embarrassed last year. We can't be doing that again."
No, but as a player, you also remember, like, look, this is the same team that came and they really did anything that they wanted, when we played against them last year. And so as a player, there's obviously a motivation to that. But at the same time, there's also like, man, I do remember that didn't feel very good, and they kind of overpowered us. I hope we have worked hard enough to close the gap, right? I mean, there's a natural point of that, and I think you have to look at it, but it can't dictate anything that you do as far as game planning or how you prepare. Like, you got to go believe that you're going to win, and those guys in Missoula, they absolutely do. That's how Coach how gets them going, and it's a different team, and they've got a lot of momentum. And then on the flip side, the Cats have got to feel like, look, we got the same crew. They've returned a lot of those same guys that we handily beat last year in Bozeman. Let's go do our job one play at a time, and let's go see if we can't make the same thing happen. But it's going to be closer this year, Colter. I've got to believe, just given the nature of where the Montana program's at this year, and they've improved drastically on offense. You and I have had a lot of conversations both on this show and off of this show about their offense, and I got to give them credit here in the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, settling into the quarterback. And Clifton looks like he's just done a really good job. They just have more consistency. They actually seem to have an identity, the ability to run the ball. I thought some of the play calling looked better. I mean, some of the creativity that I saw in the red zone was better. They just look like they're more established, and then they're always going to play tough on special teams and tough on defense. And so I still think it matters what goes on in the trenches. That's where the ball's, the game is won. And I forever, I for not forever, for a really long time, I look at those teams I was a part of, those playing and coaching, and we didn't have the advantage in the trenches. But I would say the advantage in the trenches is to Montana State, and it has been, for the last handful of years. And I think that's the same on Saturday. It doesn't dictate everything, but I think the advantage goes to the Cats as far as the line of scrimmage goes.
Well, when it comes to just the X's and O's of this, I mean, Montana runs this 3-3-5 stack where they blitz a bunch, they bring a ton of pressure, they eat you up, and they get so many tackles for loss. Montana State, they run this beautiful outside zone scheme with all this RPO elements in it. The quarterback's such a threat to run all the time. So, I mean, just break down that matchup for whatever reason. I know it's been different iterations of the Cat offense between Jeff Choate and whoever's playing quarterback and now Brent Vigen, but it seems as if, although the Grizz have been one of the top rush defenses in the conference coming into this game for 6 years in a row, it doesn't matter. They can't stop the Cat run game. To me, I think part of it is just the disparity in the trenches, but also I think part of it's just the scheme. Just break that part down. Why do you think the Cat run game is so dangerous, especially against this aggressive and sometimes over-aggressive Grizz defense?
I think that last point you said is that you can be over-aggressive as they're in the 3-3-5 stack and the movement. While it can create chaos for an offense, it can also, can get you out of position at times. I think they're still fairly gap sound, but when you are moving as much as they are, and you've got guys blitzing from here, blitzing from there, it's easier to maybe get two guys in a gap, and that's where the Cats are going to thrive on those types of things. It is a really interesting matchup, but I do think it comes down to regardless if you run in a zone, outside zone play, and they've got a lot of movement on defense, I still think offensively you have enough skill to get hands on guys, get to the next level, and just kind of wash guys down, even if you have all the gaps covered and they get a little bit of penetration, but you make one guy miss as a ball carrier, and then you're on at the second level. So I think it's just such a risk reward, as is football, right? Kind of like, are you going to blitz? There's risk reward of blitzing. Well, the Grizz are going to bring a whole bunch of people. So how many negative plays can they get? Because that's where they're going to feast. Well, if you're not getting those negative plays, all of a sudden, and it's not teed up exactly as you have it, that's kind of where we see, the snowball effect start to happen. That's what we saw last year in Bozeman. So really interesting matchup. Scheme is going to be helpful for the Grizz. I think that's, movement and some of those pressures, because they're going to need it. Because when you go toe to toe, and if they're not going to move and line up, I think they'd struggle. But I think they've done a really good job of timing blitzes, a lot of creativity, and they just play with their hair on fire, which they always have. So it's going to be a really interesting matchup for that offensive front for the Bobcats.
Last one for you then. I mean, what other parts of this match? I mean, that's the matchup, X's and O's wise, everybody's going to be looking at. What other factors do you think come into this, though? What other schematics, but also just intangible factors come into this matchup?
Yeah, I guess I'll answer that, but also say that the defensive front for Montana State, I think they are rolling in like hockey shifts. That's been impressive. So I think a little bit of a banged up line in it for Montana. That will be an interesting matchup to watch as well. Look, special teams have always played a factor in this game, and it will on Saturday. Whether it's a block punt last year that just ignited everything for the Cats. You go way back to the Jeff Groeschel type travesty in Bozeman with, kicks out of bounds and things like that. And, punt return from Mark Mariani that happened in Washington Grizzly. The list goes on and on. Corey Smith with the kickoff return, right? Like it's those things happen. And so it's going to happen on Saturday. I've also been a part of one there as a coach where I felt like the entire day the Grizz special teams, they pinned our offense and deep, and I don't even felt like we crossed the 50. And it was all because of a field position. Nothing sexy, no block punt, no kickoff return, nothing like that. But it's just the field position game. And so the team that can win the special teams battle, or maybe just make it a non-factor, it's going to be a huge advantage. So I like that storyline, especially with Bobby Hauck being a special teams guy. I know he prides himself on that opening kickoff and those guys running down the field and getting everybody going. That's going to be an interesting matchup on special teams. Junior Bergen being the returner that he is, how are the Cats going to kick to him? He is a slippery guy, so you cannot outkick your coverage. You got to be really good at the gunner position, getting down the field. I think that'll be an interesting matchup, just special teams as a whole. I think, what type of flow can the Cat offense get into, Colter, with the quarterback situation? We saw what it looked like when they weren't able to. And then we've seen this last game or two when they do, and they're moving the chains and doing some of these things. I think that's going to be interesting. How do we tap into both Sean Chambers and Tommy Mellott? The creativity. Each team has got some aces up their sleeves, save for this game, and so it'll be interesting to see. It makes it such a fun game.
It's going to be awesome, man. Can't wait for it. He's Mike Ryder, Riding with Ryder every Tuesday here on SkylineSportsMT.com, the Skyline Sports YouTube channel, and all your various podcast hosting networks. Thanks for being here, man. Enjoy yourself this weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Colter.
You or a loved one been charged or accused of a crime? If so, the stress can leave anyone feeling helpless and alone. But you don't have to be alone. Hi, I'm Dave Maldonado, and I've successfully defended Montanans for over a decade in these situations. So if you're tired of being scared, let's get you prepared. To see how, visit BigSkyDefender.com today.
You are not alone. Visit BigSkyDefender.com to find out more on how you can fight back against local and federal criminal charges.